It is not coincidence that you have found this parchment. If you were able to find this, then you have been chosen. Many have found upon this island and perished here. You do not have to. Using your knowledge of carbohydrate metabolism, you will solve various clues. Only by solving all will you be able to escape this horror. Be wise if you wish to live.
Your first task is to explain the role of glycolysis, including how much ATP is generated per mole, why are 3 of the reactions irreversible, and what are the 3 enzymes that catalyze the irreversible reactions. Glycolysis involves the 10 enzymatic reactions where glucose is converted to 2 molecules of pyruvate. But that is just the first part of the answer. To say what are the 3 of the reactions irreversible and what are the enzymes that catalyze the irreversible reactions. Well, since it involves glucose, it will be glucose to glucose 6-phosphate, and the enzyme would be hexokinase. The second one would be fructose 6-phosphate to fructose 1,6-bisphosphate. The enzyme would be PFK1. PFK. What is the PFK again? The whole word? Phosphofructokinase. This one. And the last reaction, phosphoenol pyruvate to pyruvate, and the enzyme would be pyruvate kinase.
That's all of the questions?
No, he wanted to know why it's irreversible. It would not be energetically feasible for the reaction to be reversible. Hello? Something else up here on this paper?
Is it serious? Shit, what's up?
The next clue you will find is located in a forest in the middle of the island.
What? Forest?
What? Alright, so I guess it's the forest. You sure he's not forest?
Yes, boy, he said forest.
Not forest. I think I hear Morris, you know. Guys,
Who's up?
number 2.
I think he found the clue.
You got it?
From the first task, it was revealed that glycolysis consisted of 3 irreversible reactions. But is this really true? Explain the role of gluconeogenesis and related to glycolysis. Well, what is gluconeogenesis? Gluconeogenesis is used to maintain blood glucose levels
Yeah, when
during the overnight fast.
Yeah.
Where does it occur though?
I believe it occurs in the liver and a little in the kidney.
Yeah, I think it's the majority in the liver.
Majority in the liver.
For gluconeogenesis, we just reversing the 3 irreversible reactions
Yeah.
Sure.
Of glycolysis. Yeah.
to get back glucose from
Yeah.
glycolysis.
Yeah.
But one thing though, the precursors that you're using, it will be non-carbohydrates.
Yeah, I remember
Like-
saying that on this tree. Lactate, glycerol,
Yeah.
and glucogenic amino acids.
So in the first bypass reaction, that's the first part that takes place, right?
Yeah.
You'll have pyruvate being converted to oxaloacetate, right? And that's with the ABC thing we are doing from class.
Right.
Remember
And
that?
this cofactor biotin.
Right. And the enzyme was pyruvate carboxylase and it needed energy, so that means it had to use ATP. Right? I remember that.
Yeah.
But then oxaloacetate, that's take place in the conversion of pyruvate to oxaloacetate will take place in cytosol. But the oxaloacetate cannot cross the mitochondrial membrane to go into the matrix because that's where it needs to go, right? Right. So that means oxaloacetate has to be reduced reduced to
Malate.
malate.
Malate,
yeah.
for real.
Reduced to malate in order to enter the mitochondrial membrane to the matrix, right? Right. So after malate has reached the mitochondrial membrane, it will then have to be converted back to oxaloacetate. So that means it will be oxidized back to oxaloacetate. And then oxaloacetate is then converted to what, boy?
Back to Mali.
No, it's not converted back to
Right.
malate. Where does that?
Phosphoenol pyruvate,
Right.
and then the enzyme that catalyzes it is phosphoenol pyruvate carboxykinase.
Alright, so the second and third bypass reactions will just be simple hydrolysis.
Yeah.
So in the second one, it's fructose 1,6-phosphate bisphosphate go into fructose 6 phosphate. What enzyme catalyzes that? Fructose 1,6 bisphosphatase.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's for the second one. And third one is glucose 6 phosphate
To
to
glucose, huh?
glucose. To
To
glucose.
glucose, yeah.
And that uses glucose 6 phosphatase.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the second and third reactions.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
but I still say I know that the enzyme in the second reaction, what you say it was
It's the
again?
most regulated enzyme.
Most regulated enzyme.
What is the
Fructose
enzyme?
1,6
Fructose 1,6
bisphosphatase.
Bisphosphatase.
The third area that your clue will be located is an abandoned play park.
Chad, what happened to this place?
I guess if you want to play park, well, we'll find the other clue.
Alright, so let's start looking for the clue.
I wonder where
This is real tricky though.
Why did you say this? Keeping me out.
Wait, is it?
Found it?
Oh, he gets. Now that you have figured out the role of gluconeogenesis, explain what happens before this action comes into play.
Before gluconeogenesis, the glycogen stores in the liver is first broken down to maintain the blood glucose concentration.
But where would we get this glycogen to break down?
I remember in class he was saying that the glucose is converted to glucose 6 phosphate. Yeah. And that would bring the glycogen.
Yeah, because I think the glucose 6 phosphate that will be converted to glucose 1 phosphate catalyzed by phosphoglucomutase. So this reaction, a UDP will be added to the glucose 1 phosphate to form UDP glucose and the pyrophosphate. But this pyrophosphate, the hydrolysis of this pyrophosphate to form the 2-PI, this is what will give the energy to catalyze the reaction to UDP glucose, and that is catalyzed like UDP glucose pyrophosphorylase. Now this UDP glucose, this is what you're using to form the chain, right? So the enzyme catalyzing the formation of these chains with glycogen synthase.
But
Yeah.
Chelsea, remember that glycogen synthase, that cannot add the first 4 glucosyl residues.
Right,
It needs, what was it called? A primer
right.
called glycogenin.
Yeah.
The glycogenin.
Yeah.
And
Primer,
glycogenin is a bifunctional protein. That means it acts as a primer and it also catalyzes its own reaction.
What's so special about this glycogenin?
Well, this has the amino acid residue tyrosine with the OH group attached. Then it's going to be attached to the molecule glucose. And the UDP, the UDP group is going to be cleaved off. And this is going to happen for 3 other reactions.
Right, so the glycogenin, there's a primer that forms that phase 4 glucosyl residue. Then glycogen synthase comes into play. This is the main regulatory enzyme for glycogenesis. And this will catalyze the rest of the alpha 1,4 bonds to form the long chain. And then it will soon form branches using a branching enzyme 4-6 transferase. It's called 4-6 transferase because it's basically breaking an alpha 1,4 bond and forming an alpha 1,6 bond. So this will continue forming the end product being glycogen, and this is what will be stored in the liver.
So and now the body would need to break down the glycogen.
But how do we do this?
Well, glycogen phosphorylase, that'll start cleaving the alpha 1-4 glycosidic bonds from the non-reducing end until 4 glucosyl residues remain.
That's called a limit dextrin.
Yes, a limidextrin. The glycogen phosphorylase, it cannot remove the limidextrin, so we'll use a debranching enzyme. Now, right, the oligo alpha 1,4 glucan transferase. That's going to remove 3 of the 4 glucosyl residues and transfer it to the non-reducing end. The enzyme for this is 4,4 transferase. The remaining single glucose residue is attached by an alpha 1,6 linkage. The amylo alpha 1,6 glucosidase will remove it and hydrolytically free the glucose. The chain will be available for degradation by glycogen phosphorylase, and then the branching enzyme would convert the
branch structure of a limit dextrin into a linear one.
Glucose 6-phosphate is converted back to glucose by glucose 6-phosphatase. The hepatocytes then release the glycogen stored glucose into the blood to help maintain the blood glucose concentration until gluconeogenesis actively produce glucose.
The muscles does not contain the enzyme glucose 6-phosphatase to dephosphorylate G6P. So G6P enters glycolysis to provide energy for the muscles to contract.
The final clue is located in the abandoned boathouse.
You should be somewhere here.
Yeah.
People.
Wait, what is that?
Was that not true? Hey,
Last clue.
last two.
You all are proving to be very good students. But tell me this. What is the PPP?
I don't got any toilet. No ATP is directly consumed or produced, and the C1 carbon on the glucose 6-phosphate is released as CO2, and 2 NADPH molecules are produced per molecule of glucose 6-phosphate in the oxidative part of the pathway.
This pathway, it provides a major portion of the body's NADPH, which is a biochemical reductant. It also produces ribose 5-phosphate, and that is needed in the biosynthesis of nucleotides.
The production of 2-NADPH is important because it's needed in the liver, lactating mammary glands, and the adipose.
And the main regulatory enzyme for this reaction is glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase, and this catalyzes the irreversible oxidation of glucose 6-phosphate to 6-phosphogluconeolactone. And the coenzyme for this reaction is NADP+.
The non-oxidative reactions of PPP occurs in all cell types, synthesizing nucleotides and nucleic acid. These reversible reactions produce ribose 5-phosphate, which is produced by the oxidation portion of the pathway, to be converted either to ribose 5-phosphate needed for nucleotide synthesis,
Or to the intermediates of glycolysis, fructose 6-phosphate and glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate.
I guess that's why we need the pentose phosphate pathway. Nothing's coming up in the clue.
So how
sure?
are we getting off this island?
We do all this for nothing?
What?
There's nothing on the paper.
Man, this man troll us.
You sure we
Nothing on the
answered
paper at all.
the question?
Yeah, I sure we answered your question.
We answered all
Yeah,
the questions.
I sure was right, yeah.
Correctly.
Yeah, what?
Well, we stuck
Let
on
me
this island.
go. Let me go on one of these boats and sit down.
Yeah.
Because I'm real tired.
Guys, the 3 reactions that we talk about all integrated into one, and we have to talk about the reciprocal regulation. The regulation of gluconeogenesis will involve the inhibition of fructose 1,6-bisphosphatase.
This will be inhibited by fructose 2,6-bisphosphatase and activated by citrate. So I guess that is how it is controlled glycolysis and gluconeogenesis by the enzyme fructose 2,6-bisphosphatase, because it would activate one and it will inhibit another one.
And that is reciprocal regulation.
Right, but for now, glycogen synthase and breakdown, you can't have the two happening at the same time, because what sense does it make to store off these glycogen and then break them down at the same time? So it is only logical that glycogen synthesis will be stimulated when substrate availability and energy levels are high, whereas glycogen degradation is increased when energy levels and availability of glucose supplies are low. These two pathways are hormonally regulated by insulin and glucagon. In the well-fed state, you would use insulin to increase glycogen synthesis and glucose uptake, and in your fasted state, you would use glucagon to increase gluconeogenesis and glycogen breakdown. So I guess this is how these are hormonally controlled in the integration of the body.
Well, I guess that's it. We answered everything.
Yeah.
Every single clue.
Everything.
I mean, well,
So you're still stuck here though?
something's supposed to happen. But what?
A key.
Che, where the mashed potato that he come out from?
The
What?
mashed
Like
potato
cake?
and gravy was.
Hungry.
Let me see.
What?
There's a key. What?
Look,
Amir, watch a key.
it's a key.
Cheers.
Key.
Yeah.
Watch. Good luck, key.
Drew me back.
Oh my god. Finally, it's over.
Yeah, see?
Aye.
What's so special about this glycogen?
So. Oh, man.
What, Janelle?
What? Of course.
What?
Like,
So one
everybody-
Mississippi then?
Everybody,
I
okay.
think I'm Mississippi. Yes.
Yeah, and everybody will.
Right, so Mississippi, yeah?
I don't know.
Five Mississippi.
Hi.
Just do it.
Glycogenesis.
Smiling. Don't look at the camera, look there.
Glycogenesis.
I believe there's a marina down there.
We should
Aye.
go.
Let us go.
To the marina.
Marina.